the Grey Hat Beard podcast. Hello and welcome to Grey Hat Beard Princess, the modern workplace podcast where we talk about all things Microsoft 365. We're here at show 60. I'm the Grey of Grey Hat Beard Princess. My name's Kevin McDonnell. I'm the head of practice for modern workplace at CPS and Office Apps and Services MVP.
I'm the Hat. My name is Al Erdley and I'm a technical architect at the Microsoft Technology Centre.
Hi there, I'm Louisa. I'm the Princess of Grey Hat Beard Princess. I'm an 365 and Power Platform consultant.
And we don't have a beard today, but we got a kind of semi-standing beard. Aaron, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So Aaron, head of technology at CPS, but solution architect at heart, I suppose, in the modern workplace SharePoint Power Platform world.
And organizer of the South Coast Summit and the South Coast User Group. Shouldn't let those things go by.
Indeed. For my sins.
Absolutely. So Al, Louisa and I have all come back relatively recently from the Scottish Summit. In fact, I think, Louisa, have you had something else in between that as well?
Yeah, but I can't remember anymore. No, nothing in between of the South Coast Summit and tomorrow I will be traveling to Comsworth. But before Scottish, I had a couple of conferences, and after Comsworth, my conference marathon, we'll just take a little break until we continue in fall.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been quite a hectic schedule for you. I feel knackered just from Scottish Summits and South Coast and Comsverse, but
and you haven't even done Comsverse yet. That
no, exactly.
Well for you.
Well, I seem to keep stepping into more and more talks. So having gone from just helping out into the room, I've now pre-recorded a talk and I'm involved in two others on the day. So kind of all the prep for that as well has been keeping it entertaining as well. So we're not going to bother, I think, with news today, but we should probably talk about some upcoming events. So, Louise, you mentioned we've got Comsverse coming up in the UK. I think then it's kind of the break for the summer season after that, really, isn't it?
It is a break for the summer season. So I think next thing that is on my agenda is then a Power Platform conference in Orlando. And
nice.
Yes,
Orlando. Nice.
Orlando, very nice. Yeah, it's the first time since we don't talk about that. I'm really looking forward to that. And yes, it's a dedicated conference just for Power Platform. And I'm really happy to be speaking there and be talking about Creator's Toolkit for makers.
Oh, nice.
And what else? I think increasing performance in Canvas apps as well. So both dedicated.
Oh, so you got two
Canvas
sessions.
Apps. I got two sessions, yes.
Oh, really nice.
Working on the third one, just like.
While I'm here, might as well.
Exactly. I mean, you will not cross the pond just like for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah. Well, unless you're Dave Grohl. In which case you might do, but you could just be a special guest, couldn't you? And
no. I still consider myself to be just like someone who wants to share what they learn with the world. So this is most of the fun for me about this. So hey, I figured out how this works. Now I'm gonna tell everyone who wants to learn about this. And I love that feeling when you see the light bulbs in the audience and just like people nodding, yeah, or just like what, like that. I didn't even know about this.
So nice
sometimes they
faces,
have
isn't it?
some face palm, almost like, oh my God, how did I do this? Just like for years, and now she tells me that I can do that instead. How embarrassing is that? No. But I like to see that in the audience, so that really drives me at conferences. This is what I actually missed at this awful long time of doing, just like yet another meeting. We called this a virtual conference, but for me it was just like yet another meeting, and I'm so tired of that. So I can't do this anymore. What about you, Aaron? Virtual conferences? Fatigue?
Yeah, I guess there's not too many of them around nowadays. The South Coast User Group has gone back to in-person. So we meet on a monthly basis and we have a good 30, 40 attendees each month. Kevin, you're speaking at the one in July, I believe.
I think that's
so yeah, it's
week,
quite nice to be back in person. And we've had a good turnout actually for the last 4 or 5 months when we've been running them. So it's good and it's well received. People are the virtual conference. It's just we stopped a year ago actually just because the attendees just dropped off. People were just getting too much all day at work, meetings, and it's it's quite nice to go into the office. I sort of try and go in once, twice a month. Quite nice to see people, go out for lunch. Don't get too much done, but I think it's it's the networking and meetings. So
there are other benefits, aren't there, of going into the office rather than just getting work done? I mean, what's the point in going in just to get work done if you can get work done at home?
Indeed, it was quite nice having a one-to-one face-to-face rather than video conferencing. So there's definitely benefits to being face-to-face.
Totally agreed.
And what can we expect from the South Coast Summit? Are we going to see many changes this year? Can you give us any insight yet?
Any insight?
We want to have a sneak peek right here, just like and no one is listening to
an exclusive.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a couple of corporate vice presidents flying in from Seattle for the keynote. We've also got the pre-summit workshops and the hackathon on the Friday, and hopefully this year we will have 3 expo halls. So our headline sponsor has their own expo hall. Microsoft are coming in force. So we should have HoloLens experience. We should have the Surface team, the Xbox team. We will have representation from all the product groups. Several of them are flying in from Seattle as well, I believe. And obviously you've got the main expo hall where we've got, I think it's about 54 sponsors now in there, ranging from your typical Microsoft MSP through to several ISVs as well. So similar to last year, but I think there'll be a lot more for the attendees to get hands-on with, engaging with Microsoft directly.
That's really good.
We've taken the decision to sort of reduce the number of speaking sessions. There was quite a few last year. I think that just confused and there's too many concurrent sessions. So people were like, do I go to this one? Do I go to that one? Where do I go? So we've reduced the number. So obviously the call for speakers, which is currently open, it might be a little bit trickier to get a speaking slot this year, just because we've reduced the numbers. But I think on the grand scheme of things, for a 2-day community-led conference with the presence of Microsoft, the presence of our sponsors, and everything else that's happening over the 2 days, it should be a really good experience.
Wow, this is super impressive.
I think
that mixing
Louise, you're making an appearance with the piano as well. I hope you've been practicing.
So
did you say with the piano?
Yes, with the piano. So we had there was kind of a joke on Twitter that if I practice the Muppet Tunes song, that I would then get and I would play this on Friday evening on the piano, then I would get a session on Saturday. This happened. And then I downloaded the notes and then I practiced on my piano here, and my kids were like,
the things you do.
What are you even doing? And I said, I'm preparing for a conference. Mommy is busy.
Not speaking, you're playing this year.
Yeah.
Friday night would be really good because we've got an Oktoberfest themed party. So we've got a German band, we've got German food, German beer.
Oh my god.
No escape, Louise.
We've got steins. We've hired in steins.
Playing the piano. Fantastic. This,
yeah.
I'm there. I'm so there. Front row seats.
Sold it.
This is how to tell a conference, So you get Lisa to play the Muppet tune just like
during the interval between the two.
To all the Muppets in the audience, yeah.
I'll put a piano on the stage.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'm thinking themed T-shirts now as well.
I will you be? So which Muppet will you be?
Oh, there you go. There's a question.
You know, the Muppets
always
is before
like
my
Beaker.
time. I wouldn't
You
know
know that
the
guy
names.
still?
Good on. He's not. He's not a Muppet though, is he? He's Sesame Street.
No, it's Sesame
Yeah.
Street, but still, I like puppets.
I love it. I don't know where to go from this. We should probably cover that we're talking about a main topic today. So, you see, Aaron, when I said we'd be about half an hour ish on there. So the main topic we're going to talk about today, apart from Muppets and the piano, is the Centre of Excellence, the Power Platform Centre of Excellence. Aaron, do you want to explain?
Yeah, sure. So I think, when I'm talking to customers, many are either on their Power Platform journey and they've deployed and rolled out the Power Platform, but they've not really thought about how they're managing it, how they manage demand, how they manage environments, how they manage user accounts and security, or even where the data is. They've, by default, it's enabled, it's turned on. People get hold of this. They do their Googling, they do their YouTubing, they watch videos, and they start creating apps, Power Apps, Teams apps, Canvas apps, and if they've got the licensing, model-driven apps. And we've worked with a lot of organizations that are looking at the Centre of Excellence to sort of retrospectively fix, effectively what's happened over the last 2 or 3 years. I suppose to some degree you could call it a bit of a mess. Everything's in one environment. There's no data loss prevention policies. There's no strategy. There's no governance. There's no, I suppose, policies or procedures in place that says to someone that you shouldn't be doing this. So a lot of organizations are sort of falling into the trap where they have to retrospectively look at their Power Platform environment and look to move apps and flows and all the other components away from that and into their respective environments. And then there's some organizations that are starting out on that journey and are coming to Microsoft partners to say, look, we want to roll this technology out. We want to make sure it's managed and governed. Can you help us? And obviously, those in those industries and organizations are Googling how best to manage Power Platform, and they come across the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit from Microsoft, which is an amazing piece of functionality. And a couple of years ago when it came out, it provided you all of that insights and dashboards into what's actually happening, because Microsoft at the time just didn't have that data in the admin center. It was a bit crazy, to be fair. You couldn't actually see who was an owner, how many apps you had, how many flows you had, how many flows had failed, who the owners of those flows were. And then, along came the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit. But I suppose to some degree, there's only so much that the Centre of Excellence Kit provides out the box. And I think when I'm talking to customers, I sort of expand and take a step away from that Centre of Excellence Kit, because if you're using the technology, then it's great, it gives you that insight. But actually, you need to take a step back, look at how are you going to train your users, how are you going to onboard them, how are they going to be creating apps that are best practice, they're saving the data in the right place, they're trained to ensure that the security of the data behind it is secure. We know lots of people use SharePoint, some use Dataverse. Up until 18 months ago, Microsoft Dataverse was a premium feature until they allowed it for integration with Teams. So I know there's a lot of conversation on Twitter, lots of pro Dataverse people out there, lots of pro SharePoint people out there. But the fact of the matter is,
lots of opinions, you could say.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, though, that most orgs don't have the premium licensing, or they don't understand what is and isn't possible and where they should be saving data. So the conversations I have, again, it goes back to the training and the onboarding. Then we talk about, okay, the environment strategy. If you think back 5-6 years ago, before Power Platform existed, you would have virtual machines that would be dedicated to dev, test, production. You would have development teams creating .NET applications in IIS. You would have to go through your project management department, project management office to request applications. You'd get assigned a developer. You'd go through that design process. You'd work out what the functionality
It's getting
is.
quite nostalgic now.
I was going to say,
It's the good old days. Yeah.
IIS for ages.
Yeah, I know. There was a formal process in place, and then there'd be a change management process around moving from dev test.
It wouldn't always be a
No,
full.
I was going to say, to be fair, there were a lot of organisations.
On paper, that would be desirable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who are new to the Power Platform kind of, we talk about citizen developers, they've not been in that development world. And those environments, those dedicated virtual machines would have service accounts, they would have the right licensing, there'd probably be a SQL backend typically. And now we've moved to this Power Platform, this low code, no code approach. Some of that basics kind of gets forgotten about. But
see, I beg to differ there. I think there was an awful lot of citizen development going on in a lot of different platforms. Excel for one, Access, InfoPath,
SPJS.
I think there was an awful lot going on, and I think what you've described is, as consultants, what we always wanted to kind of help achieve, and I think we're still in that position of trying to help organizations achieve that ideal state with the constraints of how much capacity do they have, what are the demands, what do their users need, how fast can they react, where's the ownership sit. And I think those are the real world
ease of creation versus the governance and making sure it's not a mess, isn't it? It's trying to find that balance between the two.
And I think that's where this low code, it's positioned to enable all of that, anyone to do whatever they need because they understand the problem. And I think it's that governance piece that, as you say, most organizations, when they put the center of excellence in, or when they have done over the last 3 or 4 years, the first thing they see is, oh, look, people have actually clicked that button. Before we could turn it off, they've actually created something, and it's, there's a ton of stuff that's there in all sorts of different states of usage.
Yeah. And I guess that center of excellence as well is there to make sure people can still be productive. They can do their job. They can do it in a more efficient way. They're moving away from the Access and the InfoPath and the dreaded link spreadsheets into the Power Apps world, which is fine. But I think, when you're looking at that center of excellence, you need to define.
I hear an opinion on its way.
I have an opinion. Yeah, so of course, whenever I hear that story, and I see this with my customers, of course, as well, just like moving away from those spreadsheets where all that VBA is included, and there's only one person in that entire organization who can maintain that file. That kind of awful situation. Of course, that is wrong. But if you now take this spreadsheet and turn this into a Power App, you did not win anything. You did not win anything. And the problem with that is, not only will this app be bad, just like lagging of design, lagging of user experience, lagging of security, lagging of just like a decent place to host the data, but also we created a new problem, because that new problem now means Power Apps, or Power Platform, that is now a system where I can make an app. No, you buy a platform. You invest into a platform, and you do not buy a single app or just like 10 apps, and then you need to calculate how many licenses will I need for how many users for how many apps, and what's the return on investment for that. If you are committed to invest into a platform, and you know what that means, then you will never have any discussions about licenses with your customers. I promise that. So this is what I explain to my customers, that it's called Power Platform for a reason. And if you only think about, but I have that use case. No, you make an investment, and it's a heavy investment into a platform so that you can then solve your own problems. or more easily solve your own problems without always needing to ask someone else. And if you understand this, then of course this has a price. And of course you will need to pay a licensing fee for that. And yes, no one pays the price that is on the website. That is true as well. So please don't make this calculate. Yeah, we know this. It's not a secret. And maybe you can negotiate this even better. But we need to walk away from this, and then we will transform this ugly Excel spreadsheet into a Power App. No way. We will throw this away because most probably the entire process is garbage.
And the same with like paper to digital as well. You get the same issue that people try and replicate that paper process and just have the same thing happen within your apps. And then, funny enough, it doesn't quite work the same as that. And you have to think about other things. And, people can't squiggle on the edge of this bit of paper because it's an app now, and making sure you consider all those bits as you take it through as well.
Yeah. So most of the time, the benefit of having something that was on paper now in an app is not that the app works now a little bit faster. Because what would we do with these 5 minutes that you then save on that? Most probably the real value of that is that I now gain insights on my data. And that I can then act accordingly, and that I can anticipate things instead of only reacting to things that already have happened. Because we know that repairing will always take more time, more energy, is more costly, and so on.
But as you say, it is a platform, and that means that it's not. I think, I still correct a lot of people when they go, "Oh, Power Apps," is like, no, Power Platform. Please, come on, it's Power Platform. It does so much more than just an app can do on its own, and that's the beauty of it. But you do have to think of it as you say, Louisa, reinventing the process to make the most of the technology, not just lift and shift and just create the same issues that you had before, but just on a different technology.
Yeah, I think you have to look at it as the automation behind it as well to improve process. There's the security as well. Perhaps it's for some organizations a bigger ticket than others where paper-based left on the side or it's left on a train. At least if it's digitally, you've got that security around it.
It's also it is also the visibility, the insights that you get, but it's also the notifications and transparency. None of us like, we've submitted a form and we have no idea where our request is or who to contact to get an update. And it is just generally Microsoft designing it to make it, to improve a process, make it better for everybody who's participating in it, whether they are submitting it or whether they are responding and fulfilling a process.
Yeah, and all of that is captured as data as well. Lots of organizations from a reporting perspective, are looking at how many requests have been created, how quick were they able to respond, where are those requests, if the request is sat with someone waiting for them to approve it, nudge them, give them a gentle reminder to hurry that approval process or whatever it might be along. So there's those benefits as well.
And the other benefit you got by having it all within the Power Platform is you can see from a central point of view where someone's creating a desk booking app here and someone else has created a desk booking app here and someone else created a desk booking one here. Why do you need 3 different ones that maybe have their little advantages and things? You can start to look at combining some of those together and improving some of that. When it was in Excel, it'll be all over the place.
Or just having some guide rails where they go, we're going to create this. Is there anything else that's already out there? Yeah. And you kind of go, don't reinvent the wheel, please.
I think that's the visibility, isn't it? It's creating a sort of an organization app catalog that you go to first to see if anyone else has created an app or if an app already exists. There's so many, especially for the larger organizations, that departments just are siloed. They don't talk to one another. Having that visibility.
I'd say with smaller ones as well.
But this is where the Centre of Excellence has the innovation backlog, doesn't it now? So that you can manage that process as part of the Centre of Excellence. And I think this is where the Centre of Excellence is so much more than just a reporting tool. It is, actually supporting the management of users, the processes involved in that governance. So it's not only let's put it in and see what's there and let's work out what we have to do to manage it. It's a key component of actually managing the environments moving forward and managing the platform moving forward as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the other aspect of that as well is just managing the type of apps that are created or published.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all well and good having individual apps to help your day-to-day tasks. Then you've got, you know, department apps. You know, you might be 3 or 4 of you. You've created something to manage tasks. You know, from an IT perspective, you know, that's no different to creating, you know, a spreadsheet that you share and assign tasks. And, you know, from an IT, do IT really need to get involved? No. But then you've got on the opposite end of the scale is, you know, someone's creating an app that is going to be organizational wide, and it could be a simple holiday request or a visitor booking form or, you know, car park reservation type system.
It could be a P&L app that is measuring the P&L for your company and then reporting on it. You don't know, you know, getting that visibility means you can go, are you really sure you should develop one thing that just one person knows about? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, it's having those guardrails in place.
You're falling into the app trap there. It could still be a Power BI report. It could be an automation sending notifications. It could be anything that becomes something that people are relying on in their day-to-day role.
Yeah. You know, I know we've talked about Power Apps and service accounts and when to use Power Apps and Logic Apps quite a bit recently. But, you know, if you had a flow that was sending off to your, whatever your compliance, you know, whether it's banking or something like that, that sent your requirements there, and some wise person, I was about to say wise guy because we know it's going to be a man, is going to do that with Power Apps and then suddenly leaves or hasn't set the licensing, boom, you're suddenly missing a load of things there. I mean, it's just scary, and I've seen things happen like that in the past when you give people the power without giving them the education. And that's what I love with the CoEs. It encourages you to think about the right things to do as well. It's not just blocking you, it's getting you thinking about it and why you do things, asking you questions that kind of make you ponder and make sure you can hand things over correctly when you move to different teams or leave. It's getting that thinking, getting people having that understanding, not just training how to do things, but training people why to do things as well, that covers it.
Yeah, I think it's also super important to understand where the organization is at right now. So there is, of course, a broad variety of maybe organizations are started, and most probably, so what I see, how they assess their own progress and how I would assess their progress, that doesn't quite fit very well usually. And of course this is about self-perception and being seen from someone outside of their own organization, but it really helps to just like assess with a maturity model to see where are you at right now and where would you like to be, just like in 1.5 years or in 2 years, something like that, just like to offer some perspective, because of course that does not happen overnight, because you need to talk to a lot of people and you need to implement a lot of stuff, and then guess what, there are users as well, so they need to be trained and be educated as well, and they need time to process all of that as well, and to be aware of all the changes and new tools that are now available to them. So I find this really helpful. If you make this assessment, where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then act accordingly, because not everything it's just like it's now for them, you know.
Yeah, and I love what you said there with the maturity model, that work out where you want to be, because, you know, often maturity model you've got from 0 to the kind of top. Some organizations won't want to necessarily be right up there. You know, if it's not their core focus, it may be that they make a choice, or in some areas, you know, Al, you were talking about that it's a platform. It may be, yes, they want apps, yes, flow, but in PVA, Power Virtual Agents, they're not quite so worried and things. So you can make a choice about exactly how far you want to go with something. Make an active choice around what you want to do with that.
I have opinions again. I'm sorry. So of course, if a customer tells me I will not encourage that you build chatbots, then of course I, as a Git consultant, will ask why. But it is not about which tool and which approaches you will want to take. It is about the outcome. So which impact do you want to make? And I see this in M365 the very same way as I see this in Power Platform with customers. So they tell me, yeah, we are super digital. We send emails the entire day. Yeah, congratulations on that. But that does not mean, so that is the worst, right? So we did, I mean, who of you gets too many emails? So all of us, we're all guilty of that. We send too many emails. We get too many emails. We do not want this. We know that this is not productive, but at least it's still there. So we still need to deal with that. But every email is a sign of someone in that process did something wrong. Every single email. I will die on that hill. So it is not necessarily the person who sends that email, but somewhere this process was not designed.
So we should just turn off those connectors to Outlook to send emails.
Oh my God, I love you.
That would be nice.
But just going back to the maturity question, I don't think it's about the technology, it's about the rate of change. Yeah. It is about how you can adopt it, because, you know, I've worked with clients, they switch on the CoE and they go, right, okay, so we've got 3 environments, we haven't created any. What are these other environments? What are all these things that are in the default environment? Wait a second, what do we actually need for DLP? Who's going to be used? There's a lot of steps to actually planning and implementing change around this in terms of the governance, moving things around, and then actually starting to say, okay, what does good look like? You know, what does good practice look like, and how do we actually start introducing it to our staff, you know, enabling them, centers of excellence, champions, you know, the softer side of actually enabling people to do the right thing in the Power Platform. That's not a quick thing. I often get clients who come along, they go, great, we want to run a Power Platform hackathon. Excellent. How much do your staff know about the Power Platform? Nothing. Okay. Right, so this is a bit of a chicken and egg thing here. You know, they can learn it if they've got some experts in each team, or you can train them. What do you want to do, and how do you want to start and approach this? And I think, you know, this is where the low code label kind of sometimes gets in the way. You can't just go, right, I know how to automate a process based on SharePoint documents coming in and I want approvals. That's not something that most people, unless they know a bit about SharePoint, a bit about Power Automate to start with,
it's not even the code, is it? It's the business logic and the mentality behind the scenes.
You know, sometimes it's the different
systems work. You know, if
thing is,
do this. Not
sometimes it's as simple as, well, what's a document library and what's a list? You know, how am I going to surface this in Teams? Oh, I didn't know I could put a SharePoint list in, and there's an app for it. It's just some basic
creating columns with statuses or that sort of process. You know, someone's updated it, changed this, then move on to that. You know, they don't have that you know, the background. It's not that it's, you know, day-to-day job. They're not programmers.
No, and this is where
there's 2 things that are super important here. First thing is, so we know that problem from M365-SharePoint. So the first tenant you build, you will throw this away after a couple of months. If this is your first time that you do this, because that is trash. It is literally the most garbage thing you will ever see again anymore. So you will throw this away, you will build up the second one, right? So that is what you do. And same applies, of course, to Power Platform. If you do this for the very first time, you make some stuff and then just like, oh, whoa, just like, let's reset everything. Second thing is low-code development takes away some complexity of syntax. Nothing else. All the other things about making software will still apply. And it's only that the actual writing code experience is a little bit easier because it takes away some complexity. It is like when you use an SDK, if you use just like a script, if you use something that is already pre-built for you. So our code first friends do this all the time. They don't call it low code. If we have a platform that only focuses on that, we say, hey, it's a low-code thing, and this is the new cool shit, so gotta use it. But all the other aspects, they still apply. And if you look into it, making software is 20% about writing code and 80% thinking about the rest. Now, if low code works on these 20% and makes these 20% and 5% or 2% or 1% or 0.5%, then these 80% are still there and they are still valid, and someone needs to take care about that. And then people confuse that and say, hey, low code is easy. Yeah, the writing code part is a little bit easier, and we reduce the 20% to maybe 5% or 1%, but the 80% are still there. We need to take care of that. And low code does not mean low standard.
How do you teach that mentality to people then?
Like that. I tell them.
It's 80%. Yeah, do it.
But how do you teach those the thought process around actually designing it and then taking a process diagram and going, right, can I convert that into a flow, or can I convert that into a Power App with multiple flows?
I think that's the next hurdle, isn't it? That's the next step.
But I think that's where you get people to understand some really basic things. How can I automate something? All right, look, here's Power Automate. Look, play with it, experiment with it. Let's identify some scenarios that we can use with a group of champions, and actually, a bit of showing, a bit of experimentation. I think I will appeal to Louisa's way of learning when I say hands-on with this stuff is always best in this scenario. But this is where you kind of give them a primer, and then you go, all right, now let's start looking at a hackathon with somebody who can support and some expertise to kind of help people develop the way they're approaching the problem. And I think that's the key thing is, a hackathon isn't, we're going to come out with something that works perfectly at the end of it. It's, well, we've actually learned a hell of a lot about just how to think about something, how to approach a problem and convert our thoughts into something that we can actually build. And we know a bit more than when we started, so we can go away and actually use that in our day-to-day job.
Yeah,
and I think this is where Power FX is going, isn't it? It's AI technology that's, I'm sure over time will expand for citizen developers to say, I need a document approval process. This is the source. It needs to go to this person, then onto that person, and onto this person. And at the end of it, I need you to sign it off, create it as a PDF, and save it in this document library. That's effectively where Power FX is going.
We had an example,
I have opinions
about 6
again.
months ago where someone did write an app where literally they wrote down, I want it to go from here to here, and it developed it for you as well. So there will be a certain element of things that can do that. Is it going to get rid of developers or even low-code developers? No, it's still not going to do everything on there, which is, I suspect, where you're going, Louise.
I have opinions on that. So you all write code, right? Is that correct?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to anymore.
Yeah, okay. They don't let you write code anymore. You're now a slide pitch, right? Not a code pitch anymore. Okay, gotcha. So what if? So let's say Power Automate would not exist. And you would need to write a script that does some steps. What is the first thing that you got to do? You will Google that and see, did someone do this before me? Because most probably, yes. And then you will steal that code.
Yeah.
And no harm done. It is totally appreciated if code is shared, because that's cool, right? So you would see a pattern, and you would put that into your environment. The problem is that with low code, and then you just need to click all these boxes, it's not that easy to make code shareable. So you need to put this into an awful opaque zip file. Then you got to share this. I don't know if I should download your zip file. That is not a cool thing. So that is the first reason why I do not encourage this too much. But even if you get the source code files, or even if you just describe it, it's not that such of a good experience. So what would we do in an organization? We would encourage people who know just a little bit more, maybe because they're already code first developers, to establish those patterns, just do the most common things and show, hey, this is a good example if you need to loop over something. That is a good example if you need to have just branch conditions. This is a good example for a switch statement. Something that.
How would you share those in an organization?
With component library.
sort of build libraries or even just
Build
short
libraries for that.
videos, pages,
Library.
ways to show people.
You'd use a bot, wouldn't you? And you'd go, right, I need something that does this, and it would come up with some examples.
Yeah, maybe put this into a bot. It doesn't matter how you would distribute it. It matters that you have those samples in place, and I do not see a lot of Power Platform samples open source, and I do not see a lot of samples in organizations. But if we know this is the design that we like for a Canvas app, if we know, hey, this is the data model that we all agreed on is a cool thing for us in our organization, and we use this as a data source. Maybe we use, I don't know, Secret on-prem for whatever reason. But then here is just like some patterns how to make this easier for you. This is flows that we would like you to use. We manage things like this, just like your house style of doing things. And that will then just like increase developer velocity for Power Platform in your organization. So that is what I do, what I encourage.
I think that's really important what you've hit on there in terms of the themes and the examples, because I think one of the things that you get was always a big challenge until Sancho Harker came along and developed his theming engine was, getting that corporate look and feel, that consistency, and having those guidelines as to just the look and feel. How can we make it accessible? How can we change the palette where it's going to change everything rather than just a few things? Those are the elements that you actually really do want to have those sample applications, processes and that you can use so that you can actually go, if you need an approval, well, here's something that will do it. Here's how it's working. Have it set up in a samples environment so that you can actually show some of these things and actually then go, and here are the, here's the logic that we're using for this. I think the other thing that's we talked about it after Build was, how you convert and create some of these things. And one of the things that they announced at Build 2022 was the ability to take a Figma or a drawing and convert it into an app, which I'm still haven't had the time to test out. Have you? Anyone here tested that?
Anyone tried it?
How did it go?
Yeah. So I did this. So I made a little sketch just like of a forum which had 5, 6, 7 fields, something like that, and then just like a button for send and a button to cancel. And yes, it created all of that. It even created the Dataverse table for me.
Right. Okay.
But so and now, okay. So that was impressive, and it's just like a cool trick. And it's nice to show this to customers, and they will say, "Wow!" And then thinking about the business value of that, come on. So if the entire value of my app is a simple form with send button and that patches some data somewhere.
So it's a bit like taking a list and going automate.
Well, so it is kind of a wow moment to demo this. It is nice, don't get me wrong. It's a kind of, whoa, look at this magic that I can do with this. But it's not really a lot of it's not a lot of value. It is the same thing as you have your SharePoint list, and then you click on this create an app for this list button. Yes, it does create a full Power App, and it even has 3 screens. But what is the business value of that app? Because there is a list app for mobile as well. I do not need to recreate that. But it is kind of a marketing demo wow moment.
I think the Figma integration's more interesting. I'd like to know if that could go back and forth. I think it's only one way at the moment. I think it'd be good if that kind of synced back, because then you can have your designers building and I was about to say your developers, but your low code developers kind of working on there and being able to work back and forwards. And that would also allow you to kind of almost snapshot the apps from that sample you've talked about. Figma's great at having those kind of blocks. You could take those blocks and build apps from that. That I could see is nice. I absolutely agree with you on the sort of taking photos part. It's a nice gimmick. I can't see using it often.
I think so it doesn't surprise me what you've described as the shortcomings of it. But I think that the challenge that, a lot of people come up against when they're looking at building an app or building a solution to a problem is actually it's always going to get more complicated than they understand how to actually express. Even when you kind of speak to users and we're all consultants, we've all done this. Right, tell me what your problem is. Let's walk through the process. 2 days later, you go like, right, now is that the whole process or is there anything that we've missed? Oh no, there's still that last bit in there, and this is part of the challenges. I think for low code, there's still that need to be able to size it and go, actually, this is an appropriate scale of complexity for a low code citizen developer type solution for a team or for a department. But as soon as you get to the point where you're kind of going, oh, well, wait a second, I've got that array and I need to pull out that particular element in it and display it up here, and you're then going, all right, IT, can you show me how to do this? And I think that's where you kind of end up with the concept of the fusion teams being able to support and to help and to upskill those who have the passion to learn and the willingness to learn the technology as well.
Totally. I think there is a big gap between ideation, just like, hey, I got a problem, so I should be building an app, and solutionizing. And most citizen developers are not skilled and not educated and not just like used to solutionize, and then they just like jump straight into make.powerapps.com and just like start creating buttons, and then they just like dabble around with the colors and position stuff, and that is the most uninteresting part, of course. So please make first your data model as a business logic on top of that, then work yourself from the back end to the UI.
Don't
and
just
citizen developers.
But you start by coding.
You
start by coding, don't you? That's the way you develop
things. You build an app and work out what you want later. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is good to have a fusion dev team. I support this.
I think if we loop back to the Centre of Excellence, I guess there's 2 points there. It's the app catalog for stuff that already has been built to save you rebuilding. And then there's the element of your more advanced low-code citizen developers and actually having a repo for code or snippets that you can then use, share, and publish with other creators in that organization. To speed up development, standardize the approach, etc. But I think it also touches on that demand management piece that we spoke about at the very beginning, is knowing if it's a small, simple, user-centric app, it's not going to touch many of those bases. But on the opposite end of the scale, if you've got a very complex, complicated, integrates with many different line of business apps, and it's going to be used throughout the entire organization, there needs to be some guidelines and governance around that. Because if you create something, say you're in HR, you're in charge of holiday bookings, a typical one, it's a 80,000 seat organization. You creating an app without the right training or support or governance, it's right into a SharePoint list at the back end. You go on holiday, you've rolled it out and it falls over. The organization, although it's not business critical, it's not going to stop them trading, but it's going to get a lot of heat and attention. And I think it's managing that aspect as well, isn't it? It's great, you've got the technology, you've got the right training, but has it also got the right level of support from IT? We're not encouraging.
Are you asking the right questions?
Yeah. A question for you, Aaron. Can you see from your experience, like apps that grow, just like they start very small, just like super personal use case, and then the thing just like works, and then use cases expand and people adds to the scope of that app, and out of a sudden this is a pretty big deal in the organization, and then it still just like runs in the default environment.
And then IT only get aware of it.
Nothing is managed.
And IT only get aware of it when it breaks. Someone rings up the help desk saying, I'm trying to submit my expenses and it's not working. And then IT get hold of it saying, I can't help you. We don't know anything about it. And then it gets escalated. It's back in the days, when Teams was new, rolling out Teams. Some departments loved it. They would create the teams, the channels, they would start using it, migrating their files across, then, organically move away from on-premise file explorer and file shares. Whereas other parts of the business were a bit, they stayed where they were. But as soon as you start, you create a team and it's for a project, that project expands, it includes more parts of the business. You've then got a team that in the very early stages, or a SharePoint site, that IT aren't really aware of. IT haven't really implemented it or rolled it out officially because they just haven't had the time, or they thought, okay, this is probably not going to go anywhere, and they've had that organic adoption. It's a bit like a Power App. Yeah, you could create a very simple one, and everyone gets hold of it, and then before you know it, the rest of the organization are using it. And although it might be fairly straightforward and simple, who's thought about the security behind it? If it's like holiday bookings and it's just writing to a SharePoint list, if I found the URL to that, could I go and see what everyone's holiday entitlement is? It's the simple things, but needs a bit of thought around it.
So come back, and kind of linked to this, we talked before about maturity model, and I know there's the maturity model for Microsoft 365. Is there anything that exists for Power Platform that you can go and speak to organizations?
Yes. So there actually is a maturity model for Power Platform as well. You can find this on GitHub in the Microsoft Docs organization. So it's github.com/Microsoft Docs, and then I don't know. I think it's that the Power Platform repo. But there is a Power Platform adoption maturity model, and it works quite well. And it was also featured in the official Power Platform blog a couple of months ago, I think. And I use this to just like explain, hey, we need to talk about your journey, because this is not something, this is not a moment. So we can't just like turn it on and then everything works, or then everything is secure. But we need to define what are your goals with that. So where do you want to go with Power Platform? If it's just, Power Platform, that is free in my M365 license, and we just see what we can build with the built-in license. Okay, so you're interested in making some toys. That is fine for me, but that will not drive return on investment in your organization, just to be clear. And usually it's a good way to start the conversation.
I think the flip side to that as well is that for many organizations, setting up some basic, simple governance is not a hard or long process. There's plenty of guidance out there that provide some sort of day one guide rails to stop you falling into that trap.
So in my experience, it depends on the organization and their ability to make decisions. That's potentially one of the biggest blockers that I see, is the ability to make decisions, and the ability, because it's tenant wide, to be able to go, actually, well, we've got global organization, we have different regions, they are autonomous, we don't have a single unified IT decision maker. Those are the things where you kind of have to almost take a step back and go, all right, well, how do we bring these people together in order to make a decision to get them started?
Yeah, but those sort of organizations will have a product owner, won't they, that's responsible for their Office 365 tenant. There should be.
There should be. Yeah, absolutely, there should be. But I think
that's agree. Should is exactly the perfect word for that. Yes, in an ideal world, there should be someone responsible. But in reality, I see organizations that are just like, in their structures so complex, and that for Power Platform, we have so many stakeholders that they are not able to make any decision. Not, yeah, let's do that. Not, no, let's not do this. Hey, let's do this under these circumstances. No, just like nothing. And then they just like, they have meetings for a year and still can't decide on anything. And this is just like, it's super energy draining and frustrating as well.
Yeah, this is part of the conversation about the governance. That's almost the first hurdle, right? Who can approve actually just in putting this in and actually getting it set up? Who's going to make these decisions? How can you get to the point where you can delegate decisions out to different areas? That's one of the key sort of steps that I see quite often as a blocker for having that governance in place.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's nothing to say that can't be overcome, and that the Centre of Excellence can't be. I mean, I think one of the things about the Centre of Excellence is that it can be tailored. You can tailor the reporting to see, all right, I just want to see my region. I just want to see these areas. It is a starter kit, and the starter part is in there for a reason, in that you can adapt it, you can change it, you can make it do things that are tailored for your organization. It's not a one size fits all. Oh, I've installed it, that's it. It is really, you do need to put some effort into making it do exactly what you need it to do, and then it will absolutely sing for you.
Yeah, and that's dependent on making sure there is someone at that level to know it exists, because a large org, geographically located, if they don't know about it, they don't know about it, right? They might be oblivious to what's actually happening and what's going on in there.
And all the things that are currently not working in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, because yet again, it's a starter kit. They should just put this under a license. Just make this work, license this, just sell this, just security and compliance as a service. It is what you do with the Azure P2 license as well. So Microsoft is used to exactly do that. And in my opinion, so I like the Center of Excellence Starter Kit because there is no alternative to it. But that should be something that is built into the product and not an open source project run by Microsoft. So I love open source, don't get me wrong, but that should be built into the
it's
product.
So fundamental.
Because it is so fundamental. And yes, make people pay for that. I have no issues with that. I would be happy to pay for this if you then make it work. But it can't be that people then just dabble around on GitHub and then just take a day off to just install Center of Excellence Starter Kit. No, there should be a script that will deploy all the resources that I need. And yes, of course, we still need to think about the things. And yes, maybe you need to have just a skilled consultant who will facilitate the conversation that you will need to have with your organization to see, hey, and what about demand management? What about environments? And how do we want to make this app approval work? But still, this is I know we already came a long way, but that is for me not even considered to be version 1. I'm sorry, this is not production ready. So it is the best that you can get right now. So there is no valid alternative, but it's not good yet.
Yeah, and I think the expectation is that a lot of the functionality you would expect out of the box as well. It plugged a gap in the very early days of Power Platform, and only in the recent 3 or 4 months that they've got some of those dashboards that were day one Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit. But it's like the two teams, the Microsoft UK team don't talk to the product group, and it's being developed independently of one another.
It shows.
It does.
I mean, I always joke about this, and of course, Al, you know this as well, working from Microsoft, that I always say people at Microsoft do not talk with people at Microsoft. So
only via Twitter. It's what we worked out at the Scottish Summit. It's the only way for Microsoft people to talk to each other.
So I sometimes wonder, hey, Microsoft use, can you do this or that? How do I do my expenses? I'm just like, what? And why is doing your expenses such a great feature in every organization? So
but I think this is also where the MVP community come in to provide that feedback. There are other channels as well that can really help highlight any requests, user voice or whatever the current version of user voice is. But Microsoft do try and listen. It's just that how many people shouting about different things. It's a prioritization exercise. Isn't it? But I think there are definitely channels that I know, Kevin, Louisa, you use to actually feedback direct.
And it's good. And so when I use the appropriate channel, of course, they listen. They just don't listen to each other. So sometimes it just it shows in the product, it shows that the Power Apps team and the Teams team do not talk to each other. It shows, like literally it shows. And of course, the CoE team, and of course I know lots of them, and it's an admirable initiative, but that should be baked just deeply into that product, and then license this. They are used to this, and it would also show how serious you need to take this, because assigning licenses will not lead to adoption, and not assigning licenses will not lead to governance. So you can't solve it with that alone.
Yeah, and as you say, if you have to take a day out and actually install something, that already assumes that there is a prerequisite amount of knowledge in order to know that you need a new environment for it to actually set it up in the first place. So it's almost a catch-22 when you're trying to actually kickstart that adoption and usage.
Yeah, let alone the upgrades as well. Whenever they release it, you spend another day upgrade.
So
I mean, you know when to take a day off, right? So
if I'm going to take a day off,
Yeah.
who wants to be sitting? Oh no, wait, maybe I do want to take a day off and just do that.
It's the only way you can get peace and quiet. So Aaron, you've pulled together. So I know you've been talking about a lot of these things. You've pulled together a bit of a guide around this, haven't you?
I have, yeah. So I think some of the common questions and scenarios and thinking outside of what the starter kit provides, just some guidance. And a lot of this is published by Microsoft and other MVPs and community members anyway, but it's just a consolidation, I suppose, of my thoughts, considerations when deploying the Power Platform, either for a new organization or for a mature organization that needs to have a think about their environment strategy, bringing on new employees, training them, and then obviously the end of that is supporting day to day and relying on partners to provide that expertise when their internal teams get to a point and they can't solve it for themselves, or they just simply outgrow. The teams in those organizations just don't have
accelerating
the
some of that
capacity,
stuff,
the resource to support. We work with lots of organizations that are outsourcing app development just because they haven't got enough resource and capacity internally. So whether it is building on behalf of or supporting either first line or third line, there's considerations around that centre of excellence from the very beginning to the very end.
We'll put that link in the show notes, so powerplatformcoe.com, but we'll put that link in the show note as well as some of the other ones that we've talked through. So check us out at greyhatbeard.com. We need to update that URL as well at some point. I keep forgetting that bit. Check out some of the show notes there. We will be coming back. I know Louisa and I at Comsverse, and if we get some time, we might do some recording there. We've also got at least 2 other people lined up for talks. If you would like to be on the show, I'm trying to remember, get the right link now. I think it's aka.ms/GHBP. We'll put that into the show notes as well, just mine there. So if you'd like to come on the show, talk about something,
DM Kevin on Twitter. This is fine as well.
Yeah, or just ping us as well. Yeah. Or if you're at Comsverse, come and speak to me in actual real life if you'd like to be on there. So we'd love to get more on as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're at Comsverse, please stop us. Please say hi, and I
have
would
to get
love
this
to
published now before Wednesday, Kevin.
I'm hoping to get it out tonight because otherwise I won't get any chance. But yes,
putting pressure on Kevin now.
We've talked about how organised I am already. If I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So I will get this out now. Also, if you do have, I know the last 2 shows we had were a little bit different, recording from Scottish Summit. Would love to hear any feedback, things that worked, things that didn't work. I know some of the sound was okay, some wasn't on there. So let us know what you think from those. Let us know what you think of the show generally. What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see or hear less of? Drop us some feedback. We'd love some reviews as well. The reviews always go down nicely to help other people find us. So please do get that stuff out there. Any closing thoughts from anyone before we wrap up and let Al get his dinner?
I've had it today.
Just thank you for having me on your show this evening.
No, lovely. I never get to speak to you, Aaron, so it's lovely to speak to you in the evenings again on that one. But no, great to have you on. I think I think the chatter today shows what a great topic it was to cover, and so much to think about it as well. Otherwise, thank you very much, and we will see you in the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice one.
Thank you.